Hello, welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live. My name is Daniel Corr. I'm delighted to be joined by Record Sports Scott McDermott and our special guest, Ross McCormack. Guys, how's it going?
Good, Daniel.
Ross, thanks very much for joining us. It's normally Scott and I and Keith Jackson, so I think we've definitely traded up.
I'm not sure about that. We'll see how you feel about that at the end.
No, take it from me, we definitely have. We were saying just off air there that obviously it's International Week. It's a pretty boring week, to be honest. Even internationally, Scott, there's not a lot to talk about. You wrote a column for Record Sport Online today about Rangers and the kind of, I guess I can say the declining standards. Is that fair to say around Rangers at the minute?
Aye, probably generally, Daniel. I mean, it was more kind of reacting, obviously, to the game at the weekend, the 1-0 win over Hearts, and the kind of comments afterwards, particularly for the manager. And also, I just picked up on the Cyril Dessers comment that, no, he said very innocently, it's not a dig at Dessers at all. I think I said in the piece, Dessers is actually a really good guy to deal with. I think he always fronts up after games, even when there's been negative results. He's very good with the media. He never hides. But it was just, a lot of people picked up on the kind of comment he made after the Olympiacos game, and obviously he'd missed a couple of chances. Then he scored, and he said, "Look, if I was scoring, every chance, then I wouldn't be at Rangers." And obviously, I think a lot of fans kind of picked up on it and weren't quite happy with it. And to me, it just kind of, it was probably an ill-advised comment. It was effectively kind of saying to Rangers fans, like, just be grateful for what you've got. I might not be brilliant, but I'm what I am. And I just think it feeds generally into the whole, this whole kind of thing about Rangers the last few years, where it feels like they've kind of accepted being second best in this country. And now you're looking at the league table now, and they're actually third best, which is even worse. And again, just off the back of the game at the weekend, obviously Clement seemed quite happy with the performance. I thought it was pretty poor. I thought Hearts probably unlucky not to get out with a point if Kenneth Vargas sticks his chance away clean through in Jack Butland. And obviously Clement seemed relatively happy with the performance, but I thought Hearts had far too much of the ball for an away team going to Ibrox. I thought they controlled spells in the game, which again is unusual when you go to Ibrox or Parkhead. And listen, again, it's not a major dig at Clement, and I get people probably react and say, "God, what can he do? He's still winning. He gets a good point in Greece. He wins at the weekend." I get all that, but listen, it's Glasgow we're in, and when you're sitting third in the league and you've not beaten Celtic yet as a manager, then there comes a certain pressure. And in terms of the column, I just contrasted it with Leon Balogun's comment, his Instagram post after the game at the weekend, where he said delighted to or pleased with the 3 points and the clean sheet, but not so pleased by how we got it. And to me, that's a guy who has been a title winner at Rangers. He knows how to win, knows how to get silverware. That Gerrard season, they went through the full campaign unbeaten, and he's obviously come off the pitch on Sunday. Obviously pleased to get a result, but knowing that it was far from the standards that Rangers fans should expect.
We've had quite a strong response from fans to Scott and Record Sports social media channels. Let me hit you both with a few. Weiger Toods, which the name gave me a wee chuckle. No fight, no passion, no clue. It's painful. Until there's a squad of players willing to turn up to Ibrox for a game. Perennial runners-up we will be. When was third or even second an acceptable position for Rangers Football Club? Rangers Easy OK watching live on YouTube. Exactly, Scott. Senior players like Dessers coming out with nonsense. Tavernier come out saying he's playing well, and the manager's general guff on a weekly basis trying to kid the fans on. And this one as well here, Willie Mercer. Clement says the fans don't know everything. Maybe so, but what we aren't is blind. Look, we can talk all day, Scott, about Rangers and their current striking options in the state of the club, but who best to ask than a former Rangers striker himself? I mean, what do you make of Rangers this season, Ross, and I suppose their general campaign so far?
They're just, to me, if I was to sum Rangers up in one word, from what I've seen this season anyway, it's probably an enigma. how they can seem to sort of flick that switch in Europe, and then the way they are domestically, it's just two different outfits, to be honest. And what you said there a minute ago, you can't kid the fans. I've said that for a long time. The fans, some of the fans might not be able to, put it into words the way maybe some pundits might, or journalists like yourselves. But they know what they see. You can't kid them, and it's nowhere near good enough. It's all right saying you get a draw away to Olympiacos. You won your home game. Stoya Bucharest won it. It's all right saying that, but bread and butter's domestic, and they've been way off it, miles off it, nowhere near it. When that's going to end, I'm not 100% sure, because I watched the Hearts game the other night. First half, Rangers were okay. Second half, I thought Hearts controlled the game more or less.
Yeah.
Rangers were nowhere near it. And for me, I've always grown up, Celtic and Rangers, Ibrox and Parkhead are fortresses. To me, it looks as if teams go to Ibrox now expecting to leave with a point. No fear whatsoever, and that can't be right for Rangers. It cannot be right. You talk about strikers now. I've got a little bit of sympathy with Dessers, because I like strikers who put themselves in them situations time and time again to miss the chances. I go back to the year Celtic stopped Rangers getting 10 in a row. There was a guy playing up front called Harold Bratback for Celtic, and he was quite similar, to be honest. Chance after chance he would miss, but he would never shy away. He'd put his body on the line. He would be in between the 6-yard box waiting on them chances. So I think the only sort of thing with Dessers for me is he seems to be more of a reactive striker. I expect him to score when he hasn't got time to think about it. If he's got a little bit of time, then I think that's where he struggles. But I don't think that's anywhere near Rangers' biggest problem. I really don't. Even Tavernier is getting all this stick. He's getting dropped and all that. But again, I don't think he's the biggest problem there either. There's mountains of problems at Rangers, and it's clear for everyone to see. And ultimately, now I don't like seeing anyone lose their job, but ultimately the buck stops with the manager. And if this keeps going, then I can't see the board sticking with it much longer.
See, just on Dessers there, actually, I don't know what you think, Scott, but I was thinking about this the other day. I can't actually recall a player for Rangers or Celtic, right? An old firm striker that is so stranger in a way, because, like, you think about that Motherwell Cup semi-final the other day. Dessers scored, they get through, big win, and the talk after it was, can he play Dessers again? And you go back to last season, he get 20-odd goals last season, you go up on the face, that's really good. But it's just
right.
so weird. Aye.
Well, Ross said it, he is a bit of an enigma, because, I mean, he scored in his last 3 games, and yet before that he'd gone 8 games without a goal. People were wanting him out of the team. I seen somebody on social media after the Olympiacos game. It was a great kind of summing up of Dessers' performance. He said he was the reason Rangers didn't lose, but he was also the reason Rangers didn't win. And that just kind of sums it up. Now, he gets the goal, but he misses 2 gilt-edged chances in the first half. That if he takes even one of them, Rangers probably go in and win the game and get a brilliant result. Listen, I think he's done okay, right? Since he's come in for Cremonese. I mean, they paid a decent amount of money for him. And I've always said, for me, see if he was second choice striker, like backup striker, he'd actually be doing a decent job. But the big thing for me is, can Rangers win a title with Dessers as the main striker, the main number 9? I don't think so. I don't think when Rangers go to Celtic Park, there's enough of a fear factor for Celtic going up against Dessers. And I flip that the other way and see every time Rangers go and play Celtic, the Rangers defence looks petrified of what Kyogo might do to them. And that's the impact that Kyogo's had, all the goals he scored against Rangers in the Derby games. So Dessers, as I say, he's good to a point. He does a job to a point. Is he what Rangers really need to go to the next level and be winning trophies, winning titles? I don't think so. And I feel for Clement in the sense that there's no way they should have ever been left in this position with the European squad where Dessers is the only striker in the squad, apart from Ikeman, obviously, who's a young kid, and I think we all accept has got a way to go before he's ready for first team football. So he's had to call upon Dessers time and time again, and for that, no, I admire the striker, because as Ross says, he keeps putting himself out there. He's rarely injured, keeps coming back for more despite the missed chances. But I go back to, is he the guy that's going to take Rangers to a title? I don't think so.
Scott, I just want to say there, you touched on it. You touched on it about the fee. To me, that level of fee, that just shows the market that Rangers are in at the minute. You've got players going for more than that in League One down in England.
Yeah,
and Rangers fans are expecting someone like that to come in and carry them, through the group stages in Europe and win the SPL against Celtic, who are spending 11 million on a kid.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to realise where you are and not accept it, because listen, where Rangers are at this moment in time will never be acceptable. But you just got to take a step back and realise where you are at this present moment in time.
We've put out, Ross, on Record Sports social media channels, asking folk for some questions on your career. I'll come to these a wee bit later on, maybe pepper them in. But just as we're on Rangers, we had this one in from Joe Donoghue, who asks, does Ross regret leaving Rangers at such a young age? Given his career after he left, he could have gone on to be a really top striker at Ibrox. I know, obviously, he had a great career, Ross, but do you ever think maybe you should have stuck about Ibrox a bit longer?
I was going to say that. I was quite happy with my career. Obviously, that guy's not, is he? He's not having it.
I think he means because you went away and were great. You could have been great at Rangers.
No, listen, it wasn't. There wasn't really a choice. I came back. I think I was 18 or 19. Went on loan to Doncaster and scored 5 goals in 12 games, and that gave me a taste for it. Living on my own, it really made me sort of realise what it takes to be a professional footballer. That build up to the match day. So when you then go back to pre-season training at Rangers, and the manager at the time, Paul Le Guen, was bringing in some younger foreign lads and stuff, I was just never, ever going to be part of it. I remember, I think there was one 11-a-side game in training, and I was a sub. Wow. And I was thinking, there's absolutely no point me staying here. So as soon as, obviously, Maurice Malpass was my manager at Scotland 21s. So as soon as he came in and asked me if I'd be interested going there, there was never any doubt in my mind. I wanted to go and try and get some first team games. I just knew I wasn't going to get that at Rangers. So what's the point? You could stay there, you could have a nice easy time of it, sit on the bench, never come on. But that just wasn't it wasn't what I wanted to do.
You still had some great Rangers moments to go on Porto and stuff like that, and you'd have played alongside some really. that was an era when Rangers had some really top players in the team.
Yeah, well, that was a problem I was faced with trying to get to that team. The year I sort of not broke into the team, but come into the squad. You had Arveladze, Ronald de Boer, Michael Moles. You're never going to displace them, and then you think them 3 sort of leave. And they go and sign Chris Boyd from Kilmarnock. Nacho Novo came in. Stevie Thompson was there. Dado Busso. It was just never going to happen for me. And there comes a time when you got to accept it. I wasn't good enough to get into the team, and it's as simple as that. Regardless what I went on to do, I wouldn't have done that at Rangers because I wouldn't have got into the team in the first place.
Aye, that's fair. When you read those names back there, Scott, even after that kind of golden era, 2002, 2003, when Rangers and Celtic had arguably 2 of the best squads in Europe, really, when you think Larsson, Sutton, De Boer, Van Bronckhorst, all that. Even after that, I forgot about people like Purcell. Purcell was a top striker.
I know, it's incredible. We talk now about how difficult it is for young players to get into the teams at the Old Firm, get into the first teams, but it was 10 times harder when Ross was trying to break through. With all due respect, if he was breaking through now, he'd probably be in and about the Rangers team. We're talking about a young kid like a Gamani, young Moroccan coming in. I think where Ross was at 18, 19, scoring against Porto in the Champions League, he'd have been right in and about the first team squad. But you're right. I mean, there was a lot more money, washing about back then. You think a Purcell coming in from Monaco and a Bosman, I think they'd played in the Champions League final the year before. Avaladze been at Ajax and all that. I mean, the standard of player that these young boys were up against was incredible. So he's right in what he says. Look, when it gets to that point, you need to be playing games. He did make the right decision, and obviously look at the career he's had going down south. The clubs he's played for, the level he's played at. Sometimes you just need to take that plunge, as hard as it is sometimes to leave one of the big Glasgow clubs.
Mm-hmm. Look, time is.
You remember who I just to throw another name?
Of course.
Throw one into the mix here. Who I came on for my debut at Ibrox. Any of you remember that?
No. You might, Scott.
No, I can't remember.
Spanish.
Arteta.
Yeah.
Oh, was it Arteta? Wow.
Yeah. So there's another name for you. Unbelievable.
I honestly don't think I'm overstating it by saying that. I know Celtic got to Villa, and Rangers didn't really make a big dent in Europe in those, back then. But both those teams, two of the best squads in Europe. I don't think that's crazy to say, but who knows? Time is getting away from us, guys, right? So we need to talk about Scotland, even though we were saying off here, Scott, it's painfully boring. There's there's been no tantrums, no callers for us to talk about. But I thought we'd get your take, Ross, just on the games coming up. I think I'm right in saying, Scott, it was one win in 16 now for Steve Clarke, or is it 14?
God, I'm not sure. I've written it that many times.
Either way, it's been we're not in a great run. But the performances have been better recently, Ross. I mean, we're at home to Croatia, away to Poland. Do you hold out much hope for us coming up?
It's two tough games, isn't it? Let's be honest. I was listening to the media today, and the assistant manager, John
Carver.
Yeah, he was talking about if they win their two games, there's a chance that they can finish second. It seems a little bit of a stretch that to, like you said, what was it, 1 win in 14 something, 1 win in whatever, to then go and win 2 in a row against two really good nations. But listen, they've shown they can compete. I think the only thing where that lets them down is similar to Rangers. When they get the chances, a lot of the times they just don't take them. And that's no disrespect to the players who are in the Scotland squad, but they're not at the same level as some of the other nations' strikers they've got. Haaland, Harry Kane, even sort of teams that are sort of on a par with us, they've got some good forwards. So listen, I've always got hope. I always think Scotland can go and win a game with their grit and determination and digging in, and if they go one up, they can see it through. But it's going to be really, really difficult.
Aye, that's the thing, Scott, that it can't be lost that although we're on, I've kind of said, a terrible run on paper, we are playing literally the best teams in the world. At the minute you go through that run, Steve Clarke, I know he's got a bit of stick and stuff for his style and for this run, but name me a team that we really should have beaten in this Nations League or whatever. And
listen, this is where we wanted to be, the top tier of the Nations League. That's what they fought so hard for in the last campaign, was to get into that top tier and get that promotion. And where I would stick up for Steve Clarke, I know the run is poor in terms of wins, but I mean, he got a lot of stick when he took on the big guns and friendlies about 18 months ago. I think we had England, France and Holland, if you remember, before the Euros. Mm-hmm. And we get an absolute pasting off them, off the three of them. And we thought, right, we're not quite at that level. But as I say, he kept talking about progressively building and just and then getting that promotion to the top tier of the Nations League. The thing is, seeing this group we're in, against the top level teams, Portugal, Croatia and Poland, we've not been beaten heavily by any of them. I know we're still trying to get our first win, but it has got gradually better. I mean, I was in Zagreb for the Croatia game, where I thought we did really well. We're a whisker away from getting a point with the Shea Adams goal late on, or the OG, whatever it was, get chopped off with VAR. And then obviously we take on Portugal at Hampden, put on a really gritty performance, impressive performance to go and get a draw. So I would argue there has been progress. That, as I say, that stat with the wins maybe doesn't show it, but I think when you look back to where we were when we were taking on France and England and getting a doing, I don't think that would happen. No, I think we have improved. And in terms of these games, obviously the Croatia home game gives you your best chance probably going and getting a victory. You know, like Ross said, it's going to be tough to go and get 2 wins, try and push yourself, try and fight for that second place. But Friday night at Hampden, I think there was a real positivity coming away for the Portugal game. I think Steve Clark and the players kind of got the fans back on side a lot with that performance and that result. So Friday night gives them a real opportunity to go and get a win. And then Poland away is going to be tough. Although I see Lewandowski's pulled out of the squad, which is a bonus for us. But listen, it's going to be tough. But I do feel as if that feel good factor is coming back, and he's got big players back like John McGinn and that coming back for this squad. So that's a plus as well.
Right, before time is really getting away from us, but before we finish up tonight, guys, Ross, I need to throw some of these fan questions at you, because to be honest, I kind of want to know the answer to a few of these as well. Let me start with this one. George Crab on Facebook says, this is an awful question that a 5-year-old might ask, but there we go. Who are the best players Ross played alongside and against?
I think the 4 one's probably the easiest. I always say 2. I say Peter Whittingham when I was at Cardiff, he was one of my good friends. Sadly, he's not here anymore. And Barry Ferguson. Fergie just got so much stick. Everyone's saying, he just passes it sideways and backwards. But honestly, an unbelievable footballer. Against, I think my first start for Scotland, I played right midfield. I think I played ahead of Graham Alexander, and Arjen Robben was playing left midfield that night. The amount of times I had to double back on him with Greza, it was. And then I think I played against him when he was at Chelsea as well, and he was different class. So I'd probably say Robben. He was in his prime then.
It's funny. I just imagine you in the dressing room, right, make my debut on it. Right, cheers, Ross. Can you mark Robin? That'd be great. That's quite a task. On that as well.
In terms of Barry Ferguson, Ross, sorry, Daniel.
I'm not going.
No, and I totally agree with you in terms of how good he was, and people probably don't realise how good he was and what Philippe Clement would give to have a player like that in his team now, controlling games. But I know Barry's doing a bit of work again for the club, and he's back in like an ambassadorial role for them now, which has been a long time coming. Knowing what he's like and knowing everything we talked about at the start in terms of standards and all that, do you think it's right that a guy like that is back and amongst it? Would you like to see him actually having a bigger role, maybe behind the scenes at Ibrox, in terms of helping young players and getting that message across of what Rangers is all about?
100%, yeah. I think you're talking about the role that he's got now. It's probably on a match day basis, as an ambassador. But for me, it's an absolute no-brainer. Get him into Murray Park on a daily basis. I don't know what he can do there, but there's not many players that seem to. I think Tav's been there a while. He sort of knows what it takes, how to represent Rangers and stuff. And you think back to even, Jimmy Bell, who's sadly not with us as well. Like, he wasn't shy in telling people. I don't know how many people are at the training ground now who demand certain standards at that club. Fergie would certainly do that, whether it's working with the younger lads. But for me, I would have him in around the first team for sure.
Mm-hmm. The one I was going to ask you there, Ross, was, does Ross reckon he should have had more Scotland caps? Definitely feels like he didn't get enough of a chance in the dark blue.
I don't really regret it, but that's the one thing that people say, and I would agree with them. I think there was a period in time, probably about 4 years in a row, when I was up the top of the scoring charts in the Championship, going for record fees and then breaking that record, and I just couldn't get a look in. I think Strachan was probably the manager at the time. And listen, it is what it is. Different managers like different things, but I think at that period in time, there wasn't, we weren't blessed with loads of. There was probably Jordan Rhodes at the time who was there, and I think at that point he was probably scoring all these goals in League One as well, which was league below. So, yeah, I believe I should have had a lot more caps. For sure, I can't disagree with that.
But what do you put that down to, Ross? Because I remember there'd been a clamour amongst fans whenever this would have been, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago or whatever, around you and a few players. I remember there was the whole fallout with Stephen Fletcher as well and stuff like that. But like, you personally, when you're firing them in the Championship, one of, if not the best striker in the Championship, you must be maddening to not be able to get into the Scotland team.
Yeah, do you know what it is? See, when you finish and you sit back and you look at certain situations and what's happened at other football clubs and what have you, I think sometimes what the fans saying, if it gets too much, the manager takes a stance as if to say, no, I'm the manager, I decide who plays.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying that's what happened with Gordon Strachan, but I think, you look at when managers go into football clubs, you look at Mourinho with Casillas, Mourinho with Pogba, they always go for sort of the biggest. Now, I wasn't the biggest character, but what I'm trying to get at is, I think the more the fans would say that I should be playing or I should be in the squads, probably had a negative impact.
Mm-hmm. I kind of see what you're saying there, actually, and I kind of get where you're coming from. This one, we've touched on it there, but this question, Rab Davidson, rather, at which club does Ross think he played the best football of his career? He suggests Fulham. Is that about the time, Ross, that you think that's when you were firing on all cylinders?
That's not my wee mate that I played up front for, was it, in the youth teams?
He doesn't say. He doesn't.
He made a couple of appearances as well for Rangers.
Oh,
Bob, what a player he was, by the way. What was that question? Can you put that up again?
The best football of your career. What club was it at?
Yeah, I would say Fulham. I was only there for 2 years, but for both years, I won Player of the Year twice. I just felt at that moment in time that every game I went into, I was either going to score or have an assist or have a big impact in the game. So I would say for the 2 years, yeah, that was my best. I think, as I said to you earlier, I don't really regret a lot of things, but I should have learned my lesson. When I left Leeds to go to Fulham, it was because Fulham got relegated from the Premier League. I thought there'd be a right good chance to get promoted again. It never happened, and I'd done the exact same when I left Fulham to go to Aston Villa. I should have learned my lesson.
The thing is, though, I mean, particularly Aston Villa, but Fulham as well, they're huge clubs, really big clubs, and we can see by how they're going now in the Premier League that they should never have really been in the Championship in the first place. I mean, to play for them and play so well for them it's quite an achievement. Yeah,
the Villa one is, even things that you don't see, it shows you how big a club they are. You walk in, the inside of the stadium is just pure pristine as well. Like, it's a massive, massive football club. But still, that doesn't give you any divine right to go and get promoted. It's a bit like Rangers, people saying they might not finish second. They've got no divine right to finish second just because they're a bigger club than Aberdeen. That doesn't win you things. But I look back and I think, because it went so sour so quick at Aston Villa, in hindsight, I would probably look back on when I left Leeds to go to Fulham because I thought they'd get promoted. It didn't happen. And then I didn't learn my lesson. I'd done the exact same going to Aston Villa, thinking that I could get to I was only desperate to play in the Premier League. That's all it was. There was nothing else. It wasn't as if, I went to Aston Villa and I was earning a heap load more money. Mm-hmm. It was just that chance to try and get to the Premier League. I didn't think it was, well, it didn't ever come, but I didn't think if I stayed at Fulham it would ever come. In hindsight as well, every team I've left, I've got promoted. So maybe I was the problem.
Maybe you did all the hard work to get them ready.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's what I was going to say, Ross. There must have been interest from Premier League clubs along the way.
Yeah, but the problem I had was when I was leaving Leeds and when I was leaving Fulham, the level that the Premier League clubs were going to bid at, I was more valuable to a Championship team who trying to get to the Premier League than I would have been as a squad player in the Premier League for a team. So the Championship clubs always offered Leeds and Fulham more money. So my hands were tied in that situation. Did
you ever have a chance, Ross, to go abroad? I know you played Australian, but I meant more in that period when you were in your prime, maybe somewhere in Europe.
Yeah, well, the first bid that came in when I was at Leeds before I went to Fulham was from Malaga.
All right.
And I got married over there as well a few years after. But my girlfriend at the time, her mum and dad had a place over there, so it was kind of like, oh, that's quite interesting because you could settle in right away. You've got a place already. But again, like I said, that was probably half of what Fulham ended up playing. So it was a non-starter. But that's really the only chance that I had.
This one, we've got a comment coming in here just to deviate away from Ross's career for a moment. I think this is actually coming back at both of you, but maybe yourself, Scott. AGSC Tech says Rangers need to get away from their 90s loud fever dreams, their sentimental Ferguson weepy nostalgia. They can't look forward. Do you think that's fair?
No, not really. I think everybody accepts Rangers aren't where they were back in the Loudrup days or even the Barry Ferguson days. But listen, even though you've maybe not got as much money, that doesn't mean you can't compete. I think that's all the Rangers fans are looking for just now. I think the Ross touched on it earlier. I think Rangers fans know where the club's at. No, Philip Clement has spelt it out to everyone, about the cutbacks in the summer, the budget being a lot smaller, the new cycle, trying to build a new squad. I think people get that and accept it. What they can't accept is being third in the table and getting into every Old Firm game looking like the game's going to be finished by half time because they can't compete in over 90 minutes. So no, I don't think people are getting nostalgia. It's not wrong with looking back and remembering great players, great times at the club. I think most fans get it. They understand that as a new era, whether that's going to be with Clement at the helm or not. But as I say, all they want to do is compete, and it's tough. When Celtic are so strong as they are just now, they're sitting with 100 million in the bank and more money to come. They've got sellable assets there, which Rangers are obviously trying to do with their own squad. It is tough, but I don't care what MD says. You can still compete. Rangers should still be able to go and compete for this title, and certainly in these games, these one-off games.
Yeah. Before we finish up, Ross, I was maybe wanting to find out a little bit more about what you're up to these days. I mean, you're not. I mean, you're still in your 30s. I mean, do you still play football often, even for an amateur team, coaching things like that? Is that up your street or?
No, absolutely nothing like that at all. I do a little bit on the radio, a little bit of media work here and there, but nothing too nothing permanent anyway. So yeah, as I said, I'm doing a little bit of surveying for renewable energy and stuff. So I quite enjoy that. In terms of coaching and that, I don't think that'll ever be me. Maybe kids grassroots level, just for enjoyment and giving something back. But I don't think anything in the professional game interests me now. I've seen too much.
I was going to say, and I know your boy plays, Ross, and you watch him, but I just think somebody that had your natural ability, natural talent and technique. I do find it a shame that you're no passing that on to young kids. Not I mean, and even if it is just an academy or something like that kind of level. Is that something that's been in your mind? Is that something you want to try and do at some point?
No, listen, it has been in my mind, but listen, since I've sort of retired and come out the game, you tend to see the game for what it is now. And in my head, a lot of the positions for coaching and stuff is, it's quite saturated. There's a lot of ex-footballers trying to get the same jobs, and to me, anything sort of above youth level and that, it's basically a job for the boys if your face fits. It's not what it's who in a sense, which is unfortunate. But as I say, probably the professional game, I wouldn't really look to sort of delve into that. But I think grassroots and maybe my own soccer school, maybe a year down the line or whatever, might be an option for me. But as I say, I don't think the professional game's for me. I'm quite happy to be watching it as a fan, and if you want to call me a sort of half pundit or whatever, then I quite enjoy watching the games. I just wouldn't like to be involved in them.
This is one final question for me. This is just the football geek in me coming out. Just when you're talking about coaching there, Ross, you actually played under quite a lot of really good coaches, but who was the one that stands out for you? Who was the one manager that you kind of thought he knows what he's doing?
Growing up, youth team days, definitely John Brown, Bomber. You know, you knew exactly what he was thinking. He would tell you it straight, which for me is probably these days, you know, coaches need to watch what they're saying to players these days. There's certain things that you can't say or you'll get sacked and what have you. But back then it was a free-for-all. You could say what you want. I remember kettles and all that getting launched like across the dressing room, bottles getting smashed off the wall, like people having people with their neck up against the wall and that. Like, you can't do that these days. But I would say Bomber definitely had the biggest influence in my career. But in terms of when I then got to first team football, Brian McDermott at Leeds for sure. Just a chilled guy. Really, really approachable. Door was always open. All the players loved him. And I think the best thing about when you worked under Brian, I don't know if you've heard of a guy called Nigel Gibbs. I think he's in at Tottenham now, or he was in at Watford as well. Well, he was the assistant manager, so Brian didn't do the coaching. Brian was more the mental side of it, and Gibbo done the training. But he made me captain as well of Leeds United, which is obviously the team that I support now as well. So you know, I thought he was fantastic. To be fair, quite a shame it didn't work out how he planned at Hibs. But then, you know, he's probably one of many that's tried up there, isn't there?
Right, Nigel Gibbs.
I was just about to say about Brian McDermott at Hibs, Ross. Like, he was in there as like sporting director, and obviously Hibs have went through managers like nobody's business. I mean, and I've heard a lot of good things about Brian McDermott. No just for you. He's surprised they didn't just try him as manager and get him in the dugout and try and get the place going again. Yeah,
well, I think probably he might have been ideal for like a sort of interim thing when they get rid of a manager, you know, having to go in and steady the ship. I think probably he was out of management probably too long. I think he went back to scouting or whatever it was at Arsenal and stuff. So I think he was probably out the game a little bit too long. But I think when you've got someone like that in the building, even if it was David Gray taking over as manager, why not have Brian go downstairs and work alongside him and you know give David Gray a little nuggets and stuff like that? It would have been priceless for the club. But like I said, there's been loads of good managers that have tried to get that club going again, and for whatever reason, it's just not happened.
Well, listen, Ross, it's been a massive pleasure having you on the Hotline Live. We really appreciate it. I'd love to get you back on before the season's out, if that's a possibility. It's been brilliant, and everyone watching at home, thank you very much, and thanks for all of the comments. Scott, I think we can both agree that this was definitely an improvement without Keith Jackson. I think we can agree that.
100%.
Am I getting his wage?
I was going to say, are you free every night at 6, Scott? Because we could do it, I think.
Oh God.
Thanks, enjoyable. I know. Thanks, Ross, and thanks again, Scott, and thanks for watching at home. Cheers.
No problem. Take care, guys.